morning light filtered through the windows of Walter's old farmhouse, a man elderly but still strong, who had dedicated his entire life to cultivating the land. The smell of wet earth and the sound of birds were part of his daily life, a scene he deeply loved. But on that day, something in the air felt different. While he was in the barn tending to his cows, the sound of the old phone echoed. Walter hesitated before answering, his heart beating faster at the thought that the call might be about a problem on the property. "Walter, it's me, John," said a tense voice on the other end of the line. John was his business partner, someone who always kept things under control, but the urgency in his voice was clear. "We need to talk about the meeting with the investors. One of them has pulled out, and there's a good chance we'll lose the funding for the new project. If you're not here for the meeting, everything could fall apart," John continued, his concern evident in every word. Walter felt a chill in his stomach. The farm was more than just a business, it was his life. The future of his children and grandchildren depended on that investment. "When is the meeting?" he asked, trying to control his anxiety. "In less than 3 hours, Walter. You need to catch the next flight." The information hit him like a bolt of lightning. Walter looked around, seeing the results of years of hard work in the barn walls, the cows patiently waiting, and the soil he had always loved. He had a commitment to his family and his roots, but the situation demanded immediate action. "All right, I'm on my way to the airport," he replied, determination settling in his voice. Hanging up the phone, Walter started to run. He quickly said goodbye to the cows and headed for his old truck. The engine roared to life as he sped down the dirt road, passing green fields and open pastures where his life had unfolded for so many decades. Every turn and bump in the truck reminded him of his history and all that he had built. But as he approached the airport, a troubling thought struck him. He was still wearing his work clothes, the smell of the farm lingering on his skin. Walter knew this wasn't the best appearance for a business meeting, especially not in a formal environment like the airport. However, the urgency of the situation left him no time to change. He pulled into the airport parking lot, adrenaline pumping through his veins. Walter knew he had to act quickly. With renewed determination, he grabbed his leather briefcase, the only reminder of the good times he had when traveling for business, and headed toward the terminal. The worry in his mind mixed with the excitement of facing a new challenge, but he couldn't help feeling a bit insecure. It was a new day, a new emergency, and Walter was about to embark on a journey that would test not only his skills as a farmer, but also his character in a world where appearances often spoke louder than realities. Walter got out of the truck, a mix of haste and anxiety. Time was ticking and he couldn't afford to miss that flight. With quick steps, he crossed the parking lot and entered the airport terminal. The atmosphere was a whirlwind of voices, rolling luggage, and hurried passengers, a stark contrast to the calm of his farm. As he walked toward the check-in, his mind wandered through memories of the life he had left behind, among the lush fields and the scent of fresh earth. He recalled how it all began when he inherited the farm from his father. The long days under the scorching sun, the harvests, and the care for the animals had shaped him, forging his character and values. He had always believed that hard work and simplicity were the keys to true happiness. But in that moment, the reality of modern life surrounded him. Walter stopped in front of a mirror in one of the airport restrooms, assessing his appearance. He was still wearing his work clothes, a worn flannel shirt, jeans that told stories of long days in the fields, and boots that had seen many muddy days. The reflection he saw was that of a farmer who had dedicated his life to the land, but now seemed out of place in a world of business and formality. He wondered how he had reached this point, where the future of his farm and the well-being of his family were at stake, all boiling down to a meeting in a modern office. Walter took a deep breath, recalling the lessons he had learned over the years. He remembered the strength his father always told him. Walter, never underestimate the power of heart and determination. This wisdom had always guided him through difficulties, and now he needed it more than ever. Determined, he stretched and began to adjust his appearance. With his calloused hands, he tried to smooth down his gray, messy hair. Walter quickly brushed off the dirt that still clung to his shirt, cleaning up what he could. He knew that first impressions mattered, but he couldn't change who he was. The smell of the farm still lingered on him, and he smiled at the thought that this scent represented years of hard work, dedication, and love for the land. After one last look in the mirror, Walter felt a bit more confident. He was about to embark on a new journey, not just to save the farm, but to defend the principles that had shaped him. As he walked toward the boarding gate, his heart pulsed with determination. He was ready to face the world and show that true value wasn't in appearances, but in the experiences and strength that each person carries within. With one last sigh, Walter remembered what truly mattered: his family, his farm, and the legacy he hoped to leave for his children. The race against time was no longer just about catching a flight. It was about ensuring that everything he had built continued to thrive. Are you enjoying the story so far? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any stories like this one. When Walter finally reached the boarding gate, a sense of relief washed over him. He had made it, but anxiety still pulsed in his chest. The area was filled with anxious passengers, all waiting for their flights. But Walter couldn't shake the feeling that he stood out in some way. He sat on one of the benches, observing the faces around him as he tried to mentally prepare for the meeting. On board the plane, flight attendant Lisa was getting ready to start service. She had always been a dedicated professional, attentive to detail, and committed to providing the best experience possible for the passengers. However, as she walked down the aisle and checked the seats, a strong and distinct smell hit her. It was an odor she directly associated with farm animals, a scent that was not easily ignored. Lisa hesitated for a moment, feeling a mix of discomfort and empathy. It must be someone who worked on the farm until the last minute, she thought, trying to be understanding. But as she continued her work, the intensity of the smell seemed to increase, and she couldn't shake the feeling that it was inappropriate for such a confined space as the inside of an airplane. She wondered how she should handle the situation. It was her responsibility to maintain a pleasant environment for all passengers, and as much as she tried to focus on her job, the presence of that man bothered her. It was an internal struggle. Lisa was fully aware that she shouldn't judge others, that everyone brings their own story with them. But the scent of the farm evoked images of llamas, manure, and hard work, and the memory made her uneasy. As the plane taxied for takeoff, Lisa decided she needed to be professional. In her mind, she rehearsed the words she would use, trying to be kind but firm. "Sorry, sir, but we need to ask you to leave the plane." But on the other hand, an internal voice whispered, "This isn't fair. He's probably an amazing person with a lot to offer. It's not right to exclude him just because of his appearance or smell." With a heavy heart, Lisa looked at Walter, who was settled in his seat. He seemed completely unaware of the discomfort his presence was causing. The expression on his face was a mix of determination and vulnerability. It was clear that he wasn't there to cause trouble, but rather to fight for something important: the survival of his farm. So, instead of acting impulsively, Lisa paused. She took a deep breath and decided to give the situation a chance. Instead of confronting him, she chose to focus on her job and the other passengers. Maybe he cares less about appearances and more about his responsibilities, she thought, as she began serving drinks. Meanwhile, Walter, lost in his own thoughts, didn't notice the internal struggle the flight attendant was facing. As the flight continued, Lisa began to observe Walter more closely. She noticed how he interacted with other passengers, offering a warm smile and a kind greeting. Something about that instant connection made her realize that a person's true essence isn't found in their appearance or a scent, but in the stories they carry and the humanity they share. With that, Lisa began to understand that the smell of the farm was, in fact, a reminder of life, hard work, and Walter's roots. The decision on how to react to the situation was in her hands. As the plane ascended, she found herself reflecting on the value of empathy and understanding, recognizing that sometimes first impressions can be misleading. Walter pushed through the glass door of the airport and was greeted by the bustle and frantic energy that filled the space. The sounds of flight announcements, the rustling of luggage, and hurried conversations blended into a symphony of movement. He took a deep breath, feeling the fresh indoor air, which was a welcome change from the heat outside. However, as soon as he entered, A chill ran down his spine. People around him cast curious, and in some cases disapproving glances. Walter noticed the whispers, the expressions of disdain, and how some moved aside as they passed by him. But with a steady heart, he allowed himself to ignore the suspicious looks. Walter was not a man easily shaken. Years of working on the farm had taught him to face adversity and criticism. He remembered the nights he worked until dawn, taking care of the animals and the harvest, even when others laughed at his dedication. Now that smell that clung to him was a mark of his labor, a testament to a life of effort and achievement. As he walked through the terminal, he felt the presence of a woman beside him. She was a mother holding a baby, looking at him with a puzzled expression. Walter smiled at her, a simple but sincere gesture, hoping to convey a sense of calm. The woman returned the smile, and Walter sensed that it was more than that. It was as if the gesture had broken some of the tension around him. As he made his way to the check-in counter, thoughts of his farm and family flooded his mind. The worry about what was at stake mixed with his determination not to let others' opinions shake him. He knew he needed to be there to protect what was his, and that mission was more important than any superficial judgment. Walter reached the counter, and as he introduced himself, he felt a surge of pride. He was a millionaire farmer, but this was not just about money. It was about the legacy he was building and the inheritance he would leave for his children. He remembered all the hardships he had faced, and how he had always risen again. This strengthened him and motivated him to keep going. Looking around, he saw other passengers, each with their own challenges and stories. A young man in a well-tailored suit was on the phone, visibly stressed. A group of friends was laughing and sharing moments of joy. Walter realized that despite their differences, everyone was there in search of something. An opportunity, a connection, a new beginning. With every step he took, he felt that the gazes of others could not erase who he truly was. He was more than his appearance or the odor that lingered around him. He was a man of conviction, a tireless worker, and a devoted father. With this realization, Walter moved forward with greater confidence, deciding that he would not allow others' perceptions to define him. As he waited for the flight announcement, Walter looked out the window and saw the runway. Freedom and adventure awaited him. He knew that regardless of others' opinions, his journey was just beginning, and he was determined to make it worthwhile. Walter found his seat and settled in, his breathing calmer now that he was on board. The plane began to fill up, and he observed the other passengers, all caught up in their own conversations and concerns. The energy was high, but he remained focused, thinking about the meeting that would change the fate of his farm. However, as flight attendant Lisa walked down the aisle with a friendly smile, her expression began to change as she approached Walter. The look of confusion was replaced by an expression of discomfort, as she tried to ignore the smell emanating from him. Walter noticed her hesitant glance but didn't think much of it. He was used to what he considered the odor of rural life, a scent that to him was synonymous with hard work and dedication. As she handed out boarding passes and checked to see if everyone was ready for takeoff, Lisa hesitated when passing by him. The smell filling the air seemed to bother not only her, but also some nearby passengers who began to discreetly move away, and Walter sensed the tension in the air. "Sir?" Lisa began, her voice soft but with a hint of firmness. "I need to ask you to leave the flight." Her words hit Walter like a punch in the stomach. He looked at her, his eyes wide, trying to process what he had just heard. "Excuse me, what did you say?" he asked, feeling adrenaline rush through him. "I understand that you may not realize it, but the odor is quite strong and is causing discomfort to the other passengers," she explained, the internal struggle evident on her face. Lisa wanted to be professional, but the situation left her distressed. She had never faced a moment like this, and she was torn between her duty to maintain a pleasant environment and the empathy she felt for the man's situation. Walter took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. He felt the tension rising within him, indignation mixed with vulnerability. "I'm a farmer, ma'am. The smell you're noticing is part of my work, part of my life. I'm here for an important reason, and I'm not doing this by choice," he replied, his voice steady but trembling with frustration. I understand, but Lisa hesitated, realizing that what she was doing was more than just following rules. It was a matter of respect and humanity. I don't want to offend you. I'm just trying to ensure that everyone is comfortable. Walter felt cornered. He didn't want to cause trouble, but the idea of being kicked off the flight for something he considered part of his identity made him feel small and powerless. Life on the farm isn't easy, and I've worked hard for years to keep my farm going. This is part of me and I can't just leave it behind, he said, emotion shining through his words. Lisa's expression softened a bit. She felt the pain and struggle in his words, and for a moment they both seemed to see each other as human beings, beyond the labels society often imposes. She wanted to help, but didn't know how to handle the situation. Please understand that it's not personal. I'm just following the company's guidelines, Lisa continued, her voice trembling. I'm not trying to undermine who you are, but... She hesitated, unsure how to finish the sentence without hurting the farmer's feelings even more. Walter felt torn, struggling between the need to defend his dignity and the understanding that Lisa was just doing her job. The tension in the air was palpable, and the gazes of the other passengers only added to the pressure. He knew the situation was delicate, but he also felt it was a crucial moment to show that appearances don't define a person's true essence. Silence fell over the plane as all the passengers watched the tense scene unfold between Walter and flight attendant Lisa. Walter's gaze fixed on Lisa, and for a moment, he decided it was time to speak the truth, to expose himself in a way no one expected. The indignation mixed with the need to be heard burned in his throat. Look, I understand what you're saying, and it's true, I am a farmer. But there's something you need to know. Walter began, his voice steady yet nervous. He felt the weight of each word he was about to say. I am the owner of this airport. The murmurs that followed were almost palpable. Heads turned quickly, and many passengers who had previously been distracted now looked at Walter with newfound curiosity. Lisa was momentarily stunned, disbelief written all over her face. Excuse me, what did you say? Lisa asked, trying to process the information. She was sure she was dealing with just a simple farmer, but now she found herself in front of someone much more than that. Walter, sensing that the tension had shifted, continued. Yes, I own this airport. When I bought the property, I decided it was important to invest in infrastructure that would benefit my community, while also facilitating transportation for my business. This is part of my commitment to my family and my land. The passengers' reactions varied. Some looked on in shock, while others seemed intrigued. The idea that a man with the simple appearance of a farmer could have such influence and wealth challenged everyone's perceptions. Lisa, for her part, was beginning to realize how wrong she had been to judge him. The man she thought was just a rural worker was now revealing himself to be a magnate, someone using his wealth and position to make a difference. Her expression began to soften, and she felt a wave of shame. I didn't know, she said, her voice gentler. I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to offend you. Walter took a deep breath, relieved to see her change in attitude. Don't worry. I understand that it's not easy. Often people look at me and see just a farmer, not realizing that behind that is a story of hard work and dedication. Sometimes appearances can be deceiving. The atmosphere on the plane began to change. Passengers started to murmur among themselves, and the tension that had previously dominated the space was dissipating. Walter felt that he had done more than just defend himself. He had opened a door to new understanding, an opportunity for people to see beyond appearances. You may be a farmer, but that doesn't diminish your worth, said an older passenger, looking at Walter with admiration. In fact, it just shows how multifaceted you are. What matters is what you do with what you have. Walter smiled, feeling renewed. He was not only there to defend his dignity, he was there to remind everyone of the strength of the stories each person carries and the value that exists in lives that often go unnoticed. And as flight attendant Lisa watched him with newfound respect, he realized that somehow this situation had transformed into an opportunity for connection and empathy. Takeoff was approaching, but Walter knew the impact of that revelation would go beyond the flight. He had made a statement about human dignity and the value of each story, and this resonated not just among the passengers, but with everyone willing to listen. As the plane climbed, Walter looked out the window and saw the clouds spreading like a soft blanket over the land below. The view was breathtaking, and he momentarily lost himself in the beauty of the world surrounding him. But as the altitude increased, his mind drifted away from the landscapes. It was reflecting on everything that had happened in the last few minutes. Walter thought about the looks he had received upon entering the airport, the reactions of the people around him. He had always known that life on the farm was different from life in the city. On the farm, each day was a struggle, a battle against the elements and the challenges of rural life. Yet he never expected that his appearance could be a cause for disdain. The smell he carried was not just the odor of the farm. It was a symbol of his life, his choices, and his story. However, when confronted by Lisa, he realized how much appearances can deceive. If he hadn't revealed himself, he probably would have never been seen as someone deserving of respect or consideration. He remembered how, in his youth, he had also made snap judgments about people who didn't fit the standards he had learned to value. As he watched the clouds float around him, Walter found himself reflecting on the times he had let first impressions lead him to make the wrong decisions. He recalled a neighbor who was often the target of laughter and cruel comments because of his unusual way of dressing and his peculiar manner of speaking. At the time, Walter had joined in those comments, not realizing that behind the eccentric appearance was a generous person full of wisdom. Now, sitting there, he recognized that we all carry invisible stories, experiences that shape who we are. Everyone has their own battles, victories, and defeats. What matters is not how we present ourselves, but who we truly are, and what we do with what we have. Walter remembered the lessons his father taught him, always saying that a man should be judged by his character, not by his possessions. Life on the farm had taught Walter that true value lies in the dignity of hard work and mutual respect. By opening up to the flight attendant and the other passengers, he had touched on something deeper, the need for connection and understanding among human beings. With this new understanding, Walter committed to never again let appearances influence him. He wanted to be a force for change, an example of empathy and respect, showing others that everyone deserves to be seen and heard, regardless of their background or appearance. As the plane flew smoothly, Walter felt that this moment of revelation was not just about him. It was about all the passengers and how they could come together to break down the barriers that separated them. He smiled to himself, a smile of gratitude for the life he had, for the lessons he had learned, and for the opportunity to make a difference. And so, at that height, he found a new determination, not only to defend his farm, but also to be an advocate for humanity, recognizing that true beauty lies in the diversity of experiences each person brings. The journey was still far from over, but Walter knew that by looking beyond appearances, he could transform not only his life but also the lives of those around him. As the plane gained altitude, Lisa stepped away from the bustle of the cabin and allowed herself to reflect on what had just happened. She walked down the aisle, organizing things while her mind was still caught up in the conversation with Walter. His words echoed in her mind, challenging her own assumptions and prejudices. Lisa had always strived to be an exemplary professional, maintaining high standards in her work as a flight attendant. However, in that moment, she realized she had failed in a fundamental aspect: empathy. Her reaction to Walter had not only been hasty but also inhumane. She glanced back at him, now sitting in his seat with a calm, almost thoughtful expression as he looked out the window. Hearing the noise in the cabin, Lisa noticed that the conversations around her had changed. Passengers were now whispering about Walter, some showing curiosity and respect, while others seemed inspired by his story. It was as if his narrative had shifted the dynamics on the plane, and she realized that the opinions of the other passengers were being shaped by the authenticity he had revealed. With a surge of determination, Lisa approached Walter again. "I'm sorry for everything. I truly regret how I treated you," she said, her voice gentle and filled with sincerity. "Your story? Well, you made me rethink some things." Walter looked at her with a kind smile. "Don't worry, we all have our struggles and lessons," he replied, the warmth in his tone reflecting the essence of the man she was beginning to admire. The interaction made her think about her own life. Lisa had always been cautious in her evaluations of people, but in her pursuit of professionalism, she had lost sight of the importance of looking beyond the surface. She remembered her personal experiences, how she had sometimes quickly judged others without knowing their stories. She recalled a coworker who was often the butt of jokes, but was actually struggling with personal issues that no one knew about. Life is full of nuances, Walter continued, noticing Lisa's contemplative expression. Each of us brings our own stories and experiences, and what may seem like a flaw to some can actually be a mark of struggle and resilience. These words struck a deep chord in Lisa, awakening a sense of humility. She began to realize that what she was doing was perpetuating a cycle of judgment that did not reflect the truth of people. There was so much value in the life experiences that each person carried, and every story deserved to be heard. "I truly admire your courage in sharing this," she said, her tone now softer and more reflective. "You've made me realize that we should value every person we meet, regardless of how they present themselves." Walter nodded, his gaze deep and understanding. "We all have our battles. Sometimes all we need is a little compassion to see beyond appearances. I've always believed that if we are humble and open, we can learn something valuable from everyone around us." As the conversation flowed, Lisa began to feel a transformation inside her. She not only recognized her mistake but was also determined to change her approach. What happened on that flight would become a valuable lesson she would carry with her, not only as a flight attendant but as a human being. She wanted to be someone who helped people feel seen and heard, rather than judged. And as the plane continued its journey, Lisa realized that life was a rich of intertwined stories, where each thread told a unique narrative. Walter's experience taught her that true value lies in human connection and the ability to recognize the beauty in the differences that make us who we are. She smiled at Walter, not just as a flight attendant but as someone who was learning to appreciate the lessons that life had to offer. As the flight smoothly progressed through the clouds, a new atmosphere settled in the cabin. Walter and Lisa continued to talk, both feeling more comfortable with each other. The initial tension had dissipated, giving way to mutual understanding and a new perspective on life and the experiences each of them brought with them. Walter watched the flight attendant as she attended to the other passengers. He noticed her dedication to her work, how she made an effort to ensure everyone was comfortable and satisfied. But there was something more, a spark of passion in her service that resonated with Walter's own heart. He felt that behind the professional facade, there was a woman who, like him, was learning and growing. Meanwhile, an idea began to form in his mind. Walter had been blessed with many resources throughout his life, but he knew that true wealth was not just about money. It was about the impact one person can have on the lives of others, about the ability to offer help and compassion in times of need. He decided he wanted to do something special, not only to express his gratitude to Lisa for her humility and openness, but also to show that generosity isn't limited to material goods. When the in-flight service came to an end, and the attendant approached his seat again, Walter called out to her, "Lisa, could you join me for a moment?" He asked, his gaze sincere. She hesitated, surprised, but nodded and approached. "Sure, Walter. What do you need?" Walter took a deep breath, feeling that the moment was significant. "I want to thank you for what you did. Your attitude made me realize how essential it is to look beyond appearances. And I'd like to do something for you." Lisa looked at him with curiosity. "What do you have in mind?" "I want to offer you an experience that I think you'll really appreciate," Walter said, a smile lighting up his face. "I would like to invite you to spend a weekend at my farm. I want you to see what rural life is like and everything we do there. Plus, I want you to meet my family. We can cook together and maybe even work a bit in the fields. I believe this experience could be enriching for both of us." Lisa's expression shifted from surprise to deeper emotion. "Walter, that's very generous of you, but I don't know if I can accept. I'm just a flight attendant." "And you are so much more than that," Walter gently interrupted. "You are someone who deserves to know and experience new things. Life on the farm is full of challenges, but it's also a source of learning and fulfillment. I would love to share that with you." Tears filled Lisa's eyes as she absorbed the gesture. The invitation was not just an opportunity to escape her daily routine, it was also a recognition of the importance of human connection and mutual learning. "Walter, I don't know what to say. This is very meaningful. I accept for sure." Walter smiled, feeling relieved and happy that he had made the right choice. "Great, I'll make all the arrangements. I'm sure you'll feel at home, and who knows, you might help us better understand life on the farm." As the conversation continued, Walter realized that this act of generosity was not just a way to give back. It was a step toward genuine friendship. He knew that true wealth came from sharing experiences and strengthening human connections. From that moment on, their lives were about to intertwine in ways neither of them could imagine. Walter's generosity not only touched Lisa, but also transformed her into a symbol of what truly matters, the ability to look beyond differences and find value in the stories each person carries. And as the plane moved toward its destination, they were ready to embark on a new journey together, marked by friendship and mutual learning. When the plane finally began to descend, a sense of anticipation filled the cabin. Walter looked out the window and saw the land approaching, filled with green fields and small farms that reminded him of his own. It was a moment of great reflection for him, as this was not just a flight. It was a journey that would lead him to a new understanding of life, people, and the true meaning of wealth. As the plane touched down, Walter turned to the passengers around him. He felt a special connection with them, a network of intertwined experiences and stories that created a space of mutual respect. In a moment of courage, he decided it was time to share something deeper, something that would accompany him throughout his life. "If I may," Walter began, his voice gently echoing through the cabin, "I would like to share a little philosophy I've learned over the years. I have always believed that life is like a garden. Just as we plant our seeds in the soil, we also sow our actions and intentions in the world. What we reap depends on the care we give to those seeds." The passengers began to pay attention, some leaning forward in their seats, curious. Walter continued, "In my work as a farmer, I've learned that success doesn't come just from the harvest. It comes from daily effort, patience, and above all, the willingness to care. Caring for the land, caring for the animals, and caring for the people around us. When we invest love and dedication, the harvest is always more abundant." He paused, observing the faces around him. Often, people only see what's on the surface. They judge quickly, without understanding the story that each person carries. I've learned that we all have challenges, dreams, and struggles that can't be seen at first glance. And just like in the fields, we need to be patient and understanding. Each of us is a unique piece of land, and we need to give space for others to thrive. Walter saw Lisa watching him intently, her gaze filled with respect. He continued, "My experience has taught me that true value isn't in material wealth, but in the connections we make and the lives we touch. Generosity, empathy, and kindness are the most powerful seeds we can plant. They spread and over time create a forest of love and understanding." The plane had completely landed, but the conversation lingered in the air like a soft echo. "Let's be like farmers of life," Walter concluded. "Let's cultivate not only our happiness but also the happiness of others. By doing so, we leave a legacy that goes far beyond our possessions. We leave a legacy of love." A reverent silence settled in the cabin. The passengers were deeply moved by Walter's words. He had transformed an ordinary moment into a powerful lesson about life and human relationships. When the seatbelt sign turned off and people began to rise, many turned to Walter offering smiles and sincere thanks. Lisa, in particular, approached him with sparkling eyes. "Walter, you really made me rethink everything. Your perspective is inspiring, and I'd love to learn more about how I can apply this in my life." Walter smiled, feeling that his message had found a home. Life is a continuous journey of learning. I'm always open to sharing and learning from others. We're all in this field together. As everyone disembarked, Walter realized that he hadn't just shared his life philosophy. He had also sown hope and inspiration in the hearts of those around him. He had left a mark, a legacy that would extend beyond the cabin of the plane and continue to grow in each person fortunate enough to hear him. And as he left the airport, he no longer felt like just a farmer, but like a cultivator of souls, ready to continue nurturing not only his land, but also the humanity surrounding him. What would you do in Walter's place? Would you have taught Lisa a lesson for treating you that way? Or would you still have treated her with respect and humility afterward? Comment below on what you would do, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any stories like this one.